Hey guys, Tucker here, co-host of the Portland Real Estate Podcast. Before we get into this week's show, I wanted to let you know that we're currently looking for more projects. So for any of you guys that listen to the show that may be an agent or otherwise that have a property that you're looking to sell, we'd love to hear from you. Obviously, we're looking to purchase properties that are maybe not best suited for the retail market, or maybe they need to be redeveloped. So we do renovations and we do new construction, so we could buy an existing home that maybe it smells like cigarette smoke, maybe it hasn't been updated in decades, maybe it's got some functional issues, some problems like that, or maybe it's just in an area that is best suited to take the house down, partition the lot, maybe build a couple new homes, or just build one new home in its place, and anything in between. So if you guys out there in listener land have anything that would be best suited selling to a development company like ours, we'd love to hear from you. You can go to our website, which is ttmdevelopmentcompany.com, and when you go there, there's a Contact Us tab. Click on that, and you can send us a message, and we'll get back to you shortly thereafter. We'd love to hear from any of you guys out there that have a property like this, and hopefully we can do a deal together. This is the Portland Real Estate Podcast, your number one place for anything you need to know about the Portland real estate market, along with in-depth interviews from our local real estate industry experts. Now, without further ado, here are our hosts, Tucker Merrihew from TTM Development Company and Steve Nassar from Premier Property Group. All right, everybody out there listening around, welcome back. This is episode 88 of the Portland Real Estate Podcast. We have an awesome show for you guys this week. We've got a fantastic guest, but before we get into that, I want to welcome my co-host back to the show. What's up, Steve-O?
We are back on the show. Isn't it crazy how summer went to fall/winter in like one day? Friday to Saturday.
There's a lot of leaves falling. There's a lot of crap on my driveway now that wasn't there before. I miss summer, man. I'm a summer fan.
I know. Hopefully we get a couple more blasts of it back. I'm supposed to play Waverly on Wednesday. Have you ever played there, Tucker?
I have not. I don't have enough rich friends, I guess, that have invited me to, we'll call them old school rich friends to invite me. So if anybody out there listens that's an old school rich person that's part of Waverly, or maybe Steve's got an opening in his foursome.
Hey, guest that we haven't introduced yet. Have you played Waverly before?
No, I try to stay away from golf as best I can. It's the worst sport in the history of sports. I think I feel that way because I'm absolutely terrible at it, but that's besides the point.
That'll do it. Yeah. No, I've played there once before. Actually, this was a charity. I went to a charity auction. It was Albertina Kerr. It was, believe it or not, 3 years ago, Tucker.
Okay.
And I was supposed to play it the next summer, and then it's kind of been like an act of Congress scheduling it because they won't let you just go out there by yourself. Right. It's me and Steve Alves. He's our VP of Business Development at Premier Property Group. He's our number one recruiter.
Steve's a good guy.
Yeah, we bought it together. I think I paid $500, or that's what we auctioned for it each. And they won't let you go out there by yourself. So it's been kind of like an act of Congress. Every summer, we're trying to align everybody's schedules along with the person that has to go out there with you. And finally, 3 years later, I've got it scheduled for this Wednesday, and I'm hoping the weather cooperates. I played there one other time before, and that was like 10 years ago. And I will tell you, it is an amazing course. It's probably my favorite in the area. So.
Well, I play one tourney in October every year, and that's for the lacrosse program that I came up in, but I'm still probably the biggest supporter of financially and otherwise. So, but Floody, if you're listening, make it in August, man, not October. Every year, it's like a crapshoot as to whether or not we got to wear rain slickers or whether or not we can wear shorts out there. So,
where do you guys play?
Stone Creek.
Stone Creek, that's a good one.
That and, what's the one past Charbonneau right there on the freeway?
Langdon.
Yeah.
Langdon. Both good drainage courses. Stone Creek was built, I think it was only built like 15, 16 years ago, and it's built for drainage. Like if you're ever going to play in the middle of the winter, when things are wet, that's a good one to go to.
It also takes like 45 minutes to get out there, which is
yeah.
But anyway, enough chit chat about that. So we got a fantastic guest this week. Really excited about it. We've got some back-to-back, we'll call them high-profile names around Portland here. Some names that you guys will definitely recognize. We had Adam Bjornson on the show a couple weeks ago. Great guy, great show. And really, he kind of said a lot of things that I didn't think he was going to say. But I think our guest this week might do the same. So we'll see. We'll see if I can bait him into it or not. But anyway, our guest this week is from a small little town in Mississippi. He went to 3 colleges. He went undrafted to the NBA. The first rookie in Lakers history to then become a starter as a rookie. two-time Greek League slam dunk champion, and an NBA slam dunk contestant back in 1995, and just an all-around good guy. Mr. Antonio Harvey, welcome to the show.
Man, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
So let's talk about that journey first and foremost, because, I was looking up some stuff last night. We've known each other for a long time, but I didn't realize how small of a town you came from in Mississippi. And so there's not a whole lot of, we'll call it, likelihood that a kid from that town makes it all the way to where you made it. So maybe start off there, give our listeners and myself and Steve a little background of kind of what that journey looked like.
It's interesting, Tuck. It doesn't seem like it should be, but the years that I was there in high school, 85 to 88, we actually had 9 guys between the NBA and the NFL that played professional sports. It was just one of those outlier classes. Wow. That it was Shane Matthews played at University of Florida, played in the NFL. Terrell Buckley, DB from Florida State.
Yeah, he was good.
We were all classmates, and there were several other guys. It was interesting. It was always the way we were brought up at that time. It's a little different than it is today. We didn't have a choice, and that's kind of how we felt about it. Being from a small town, being exceptionally poor growing up, we didn't look at it as anything other than we have to make it. We have to put in the time to be successful. We have to make the sacrifices, and that's what we did. At least that group, we were willing to do whatever it took to be successful. And, it was not always easy. I did everything I could. I tell people all the time, I overcame a lot of obstacles in my life. About 90% of them were self-made obstacles, things I did to myself. But I was able to overcome some things and get to where I wanted to go. That's
crazy that there was that kind of a bumper crop of stellar athletes that came from that group, that you guys were all kind of, I guess, friends and, cohorts in high school together. I would never have thought. So that's pretty crazy. So you go from high school. It then looks like you went to 3 different colleges. So you obviously weren't highly touted talent, right? Coming out of high school, or were you, and you just made the wrong choice?
Well, it was a little bit of both. I didn't actually play varsity basketball until my senior year. Really? I played a little bit I was a swing player, they call it, my junior year. And then going into my senior year, I had a really good summer. And what happened was a rival coach, who was actually ended up being a really good guy, but he was still a coach at a rival high school, invited me to come with him to play in a tournament, like an all-star tournament that he was invited to. One of his players was invited to. And I went down, I had a great tournament, and that led to another opportunity that led to another opportunity. And I went from being completely unranked as on a national level to being number 47 in the country by the end of the summer. And so I went from 0 scholarship offers to about 175 over the course of about 3 months.
Wow. Antonio, how tall are you again?
6'10". Although
6'10",
if you ask,
so you're up there, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you ask my youngest son, who's 7, and he's a stickler for numbers, the back of my basketball card says 6'11", but I've always been 6'10". So whenever people ask, I say 6'10", and he's really quick to let me know, no, Dad, no. You are 6'11". You need to tell the people the truth. It's like, dude, stop. Just leave me alone. I know how tall I am, but
hey, if I had a basketball card, they'd list me at 5'11".
Hey, Antonio, that summer of senior year, did you grow some? Was that part of the equation, or had you already hit the 6'10"?
No, I had already hit the 6'10". That's an interesting conversation. I was 6'4" coming out of my 9th grade year, but I was 6'10" going into my 10th grade year.
Wow. Yeah.
And what I tell people is I think that growth spurt, that 5-6 inch growth spurt, really slowed me down because, you have a certain level of coordination at 15, 16 years old. Then you have a 6-inch growth spurt, and everything you knew about your body has to be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And it took me, I really think, looking back on it now, I don't think I really regained any level of physical coordination until I was probably 20, 21 years old. It took 4 or 5 years to get back on track.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So then you went from 0 to a whole ton of offers. It looks like you landed at Southern Illinois then for your first year. How did that all play out then? You went there, and then it looks like you went to Connors State and ended up your career at University of Georgia. How'd that all work out?
My 8th grade year, my brother who played football and basketball. I don't know if you noticed, Tuck, but my brother played in the NFL as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got a family of, we'll call them athletes, right?
My dad played in the NFL. My younger brother played college ball. But the SIU story is really simple. The first guy that I met that was a college recruiter, his name was Robert McCullum. Coach Mack was the first person to put a basketball in my hands. We went to South Alabama for a basketball camp with my older brother. And while we were there, Coach Mack, who happened to be an assistant coach, saw this tall kid. I was about 6'3", 6'3" at the time, tall for an 8th grader. He asked me if I played. I told him I didn't. He went to the basketball store, at the basketball camp, got one of the South Alabama basketballs, put it in my hands. So that was my first time experiencing any of that kind of stuff. Then he just kind of stayed in touch. So 9th grade year, he stayed in touch, 10th grade year. And then my 11th grade year, when I started to play a little bit, he started to see something. And he was the first guy to recruit me. He came out early, really came in hard. When he left South Alabama and went to Southern Illinois, I told my mom that wherever he was, that's where I was going to go. And that's kind of how it happened. Even though I had the other scholarship offers, and there were some big names in there. We had offers from UCLA, USC, but I ended up at Southern Illinois, and they actually got investigated for illegal recruiting procedures because of all of that. Long story short, though, the loyalty that Coach McCullum showed me early on, I felt like I had to respond to and stay loyal to him. So that's how I ended up at SIU.
So then how did you bounce after that to Connor State? Did you just feel like maybe the opportunity to keep going, you had to get to a different platform in order to do that, or just was it the investigation stuff got a little too hot and heavy? What was it exactly?
No, it was actually Coach McCullum left and went to Kansas State.
Oh, easy answer.
Why didn't you go to Kansas State?
I was going to, and then let's just say that the scholarship offer from Georgia was nicer than the scholarship offer from Kansas State.
Gotcha.
Plus, it was closer to home.
It was a lot closer to home. And one of my best friends from high school, Lateral Green, who was a high school All-American, he was at the University of Georgia, and he came heavy. As soon as he knew I was leaving SIU, he came heavy to recruit me. The thing is, though, I didn't actually play at Connor State.
Okay.
It was just it was a redshirt year so that Georgia wouldn't get in trouble for recruiting. Again, tampering with a recruit is illegal.
Gotcha. So you basically just kind of you were a normal, we'll call it, student who didn't play ball there for a short period of time, and then you finished your career at Georgia. So then, obviously, you finished your career there. You did well, but you went undrafted. Did you expect to get drafted at that point, or what did that experience feel like?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
The guy that I hired to be my agent told me really early on, look, there's a very small opportunity that you're going to get drafted. If you make it to the NBA, it's going to be on grit. And that's what I prepared myself for. I didn't visit any NBA teams. I didn't have any of that kind of stuff lined up. So we were preparing from the day my college career ended. We were preparing to be successful by making it, by going hard, by being willing to sacrifice. And same thing out of high school, being willing to do things that other people weren't willing to do. That was the mindset going into that summer after my senior year.
I mean, obviously you had the talent and skills because you made it, and we'll get there. But, I mean, what do you think the difference is between somebody saying, yeah, Antonio Harvey's good enough to draft versus not? Like, because it seems like it's like a crapshoot, really.
Well, it's an interesting story. So I have a lot of interesting stories.
I mean, we don't have to go deep. We don't have to go deep. I'll leave it to you. I'm just kind of picking and choosing here a little bit.
I don't mind sharing. So one part you didn't mention is that I actually left University of Georgia after 1 year and ended up at Pfeiffer University, which is a Division II school in North Carolina. And I don't mind sharing because I share this story with kids as a cautionary tale. I left the University of Georgia because I wouldn't go to class. And if you don't go to class, you can't play. You have to get your books in college nowadays, and even back then. So I leave University of Georgia. I end up at Pfeiffer University. It's a Division II school back out in North Carolina. I was a great NAIA player, Division II player. I got invited to play in the NABC, which is the National Association of Basketball Coaches. They have an all-star game every year at the Final Four. I was fortunate enough to be invited, but I didn't take it serious enough. The guy I was rooming with, I won't say his name, but people listening to this show are very familiar with this guy. He was pulled over once here in Portland for smoking pot out of a Coca-Cola can, and I'll leave that alone. I'll let you guys.
And now I know why, fast forward, why you were the guy that was supposed to take care of him for a year. So I get it, yeah.
So the long story short, I partied too much at the NABC All-Star game, and Mitch Kupchak, the general manager of the Lakers, told me that it was a gift and a curse for the Lakers because I was actually slated to be drafted. But after the All-Star game, the rumors started to go around that I had an alcohol problem, and that kind of cinched it. And that's ultimately the reason why I didn't get drafted again. Another obstacle that I managed to put in front of myself.
But you managed to get around it, obviously. So you went undrafted. Did you pursue the Lakers then at that point to try out because you knew Mitch Kupchak? Is that kind of how that worked out?
No, my agent made it all happen. I didn't know Mitch other than he was the assistant GM. Jerry West was the GM at the time. Mitch was the assistant GM. When you're an undrafted free agent, you kind of have the option to go where you want to go. Kind of like, a real estate agent, when they leave one company, they can choose where they want to go after the fact. So that's kind of what it was. We looked around the NBA. We looked at what guys were leaving, what teams, at what position, and we made a conscious decision to go to the Lakers because AC Green, a Portland guy, he was with the Lakers. He left to go to Phoenix, and when he left, it left a void at that power forward position. And we felt like that was a good opportunity for me to go in, have a legitimate shot at making the team. And Warren Legary, my agent at the time, he actually still my agent, he said, hey, this is the best opportunity out there. I think we should go with this one. And that's what we did.
Antonio, what year did you go into the Lakers? Was that 95?
93.
93. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that time, that era, and that was right around the time Magic Johnson was coming out with that he has AIDS, right? Were you there for that?
I was there. I came in the next year. So he retired 92. I came in 93.
Gotcha. He was already gone.
He was, but in an interesting twist, he came back and coached the last 15 or 20 games of my rookie season. Love Magic to death. He's a horrible coach. Great guy, horrible coach.
Usually great players are bad coaches, by the way. There are exceptions, but those two together always directly correlate.
I've always said the same thing. The only guy that I think was a great coach, that was a great player, was Larry Bird, and he wasn't actually a great coach. It was Rick Carlisle, who was his number two guy that kind of ran the show, and Bird just took a lot of credit for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you can be a great player and a great I just don't know if the mindsets are right to be able to. It's really a people skills thing, right? Because at a certain point you've got to, there's a lot of humility in being coached sometimes, and that can be tough when you're, it's hard.
Go ahead, Steve.
And I think there's an element, and I think that applies to our business too. I mean, sometimes if I'm in front of a newer agent and, they're just not getting it, the frustration kind of seeps in. Like, this is so obvious. How do you not know what A plus B equals C, and if you do this, this will be the result of it. And so I think in the sports world, a great player, they're just wired to get it. They have that high IQ of the sport. They also just have that natural ability and maybe even work ethic. And so when people are something less than that, it's hard for them to relate.
It becomes frustrating. And I think that's actually what happened with Magic and the team we had, by the way, was not very good. We had 5 rookies, myself, Nick Van Exel, George Lynch, and a couple of other guys from the CBA had come up. So we weren't a very good team. And Magic was used to playing with guys like, Michael Cooper and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all these megastars and all-stars. And now you got a bunch of guys who don't even know the basic rules of the NBA. And I think for him, it was really frustrating for the reasons you just said. That should have been the most obvious thing in the world, Antonio. How do you not see that? And even more important, he couldn't teach it because for him, it was just there. He didn't have to look for it. It was just easily apparent. I do that sometimes, and I coach basketball, but I always stay away from the younger kids because what's obvious to me isn't obvious to them. And I take it for granted sometimes, and I end up getting frustrated. So I stay away from really, really young kids.
Antonio, do you still hoop? Do you play pickleball or anything?
Absolutely not. In fact, Steve, I just pulled the muscle because you mentioned it. Like, it's that bad. No, I'll be the first to admit I am very guilty of not being what people wanted me to be as a basketball player. Meaning, I love playing basketball and it was a great profession, but ultimately that's all it was for me. It was a job. In order to be that next level of successful in professional sports, it has to be all consuming. You look at Kobe, you look at Mike, you look at LeBron, you look at these guys, it's all they do. It's all they know. It's all they want to be. I wasn't brought up in a family like that. You know, my mom was really big on, hey, basketball is what you do, not who you are. Don't let it over consume you. And because of that, I had a good career. I had a long career, but I was never able to reach that level that I probably physically should have been able to. But mentally, I wanted to do other things. I wanted to learn about other stuff. And I think that held me back.
So would you say it's fair to say you don't have the love of the game emblazoned in you, possibly like some of those guys?
Absolutely fair.
Yeah. Because you said it was something you did for work, and that would probably translate to why you here now today you probably don't get out there and play as much as maybe someone else would.
No, I love to watch the game, and I really love teaching the game, but I have no desire to get out there and play. And part of it too is I feel like that's a part of who I was. And if I still tried to play and still try to get out there, I'm trying to hold on to ancient history. I don't want to do that.
And that would be frustrating, especially knowing how good you used to be. That's why I retired, by the way, Tucker. I think in my mid 30s, I hung up the shoes, and it was because I wasn't getting faster, I wasn't getting better, and I was like, okay, here comes the decline. Let's do this like Michael Jordan did the first time, and I'm not coming back like he did 3 other times. Not that I was anything on Michael Jordan's level, but that was when I decided, Antonio, to go to golf, because I was like, you know what? I bet I can keep getting better at this sport for the next 30, 40 years. And I have. So,
yeah, once you reach that pinnacle, it's hard on the backside. I used to snowboard at a very high level, somewhat professionally in the 90s. So it's hard for me to go now as a 38-year-old guy that feels pretty beat up every time I take a lick, and like, I just don't do it nearly at the level that I was. So it's kind of anticlimactic, even if it's like an epic day and everything. Like, I just feel like I can't do the tricks and the things that I used to do. And so it's fun, but there's always that backside of that hill, and I think that's for anybody and anything. Once you reach a pinnacle and that you put your everything into it, it just has a different feel. It really does.
Tucker, you still play hoops at Club Sport,
I do.
Right?
It's my release from my kids because they drive me effing crazy sometimes. So I got to be able to get my mind right, and I don't do the treadmill, so I'm a 3-point line to 3-point line guy these days. I know how not to get hurt, and still get my sweat
You're a solid player. You always have been. Yeah.
See, I'm more of a half court to half court kind of guy.
Meaning you don't move.
Exactly.
That's funny. A couple more things I want to talk about. One is you had quite a career. You ended up here with the Blazers during 99 through 01. What about that experience, I guess, ultimately led you to put down some roots here and end up back here? Because that was a short stint in your career, really.
Well, I think it boiled down to the people. The organization, obviously, is a great organization, and I have nothing but great things to say about them. But it's the people here in Portland. And I played in LA, I played in Atlanta, played in Vancouver, Seattle. I played in cities that had multiple professional sports teams, and it seemed like you were always battling to be somebody in those cities. Here in Portland, if you're a trailblazer, that makes you somebody right off the bat. And even for a guy like me, I didn't play much as a trailblazer, but people still remember. And I think that was part of it. Looking at the opportunities that I felt like would present themselves in a city like Portland versus a city like LA. And then I think the final piece of the puzzle was simply cost of living. 1999, 2000, you could buy a house here for a really nice house for a really decent price. Things have changed a little bit, obviously, but that was kind of the big thing for me was, where is my money going to stretch the longest? What's going to give me the most longevity for the career that I had? And it came down to 2 cities, San Antonio and Portland. And I never played in San Antonio, but you could buy a house in San Antonio that was absolutely fantastic for $200,000 or $300,000 back then. And so we thought about San Antonio. Then I re-signed my contract with the Trailblazers, and that kind of solidified it. I bought my home here, and I've been here ever since.
Couple things, Antonio. The expression that comes to mind as you're describing your decision to be here in Portland, I've often heard people say it's better to be a big fish in a small pond. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. Here in Portland, NBA is all we got. So it is a huge deal. And yeah, down in LA, there's baseball, there's basketball, there's movie stars, there's lots of money, there's huge industry. So you were on the Blazer team that almost beat LA. And until we had the dry spell, I mean, it was like one of the darkest games of my.
They actually put it up as the number one play in Laker history last night before LeBron came on the floor, and they did the top 10. And there was the Kobe crossover. He gets in the lane, he throws up the lob, and Shaq throws it down. And then he goes to double point. You're done with. And I remember watching that game actually with my college roommates, and I threw a keg off my front porch because I was so mad because we blew a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter. I was so mad. And they were big Laker fans. Oh, it killed me.
We had been down 0-3, right? And we came all the way back to Game 7, and we're about to win Game 7, which has never been done before.
Yep.
And by the way, if we beat LA, we would have got the title because I think it was
Indiana.
The 76ers, right?
No, it was Indiana.
Indiana.
Yeah. It was. It was. Of all the things that have happened in my career, I think that's the most disappointing because champions are the most valuable thing in the world. You got a guy that's on a championship caliber team. And there's opportunities that present themselves. If I win that championship with the Trailblazers that year, number one, that team stays together for a few more years. Number two, they break that Lakers team up, so their dynasty never happens. You win a championship, and the best example I can give is Scott Williams from the Chicago Bulls. He was no better than I was, maybe not as good as I was, but he played for the Bulls. He won 3 championships. The 76ers, after that last championship, in I think it was 96 through 99, they gave him $42 million for 5 years. He never got off the bench. Champions are valuable. People want to be around. And Steve, you know this, and Tucker, I'm sure you know this too. It's that mentality of a champion. Even in real estate, when you have a champion on your team, you've got a champion on your team. He's going to lead the right way. He's going to push people in the right ways. He's going to communicate the right way. He's going to do all those things that lead to success. And that's the value in it. We gave up that 15-point lead. And so the rest of my career, I had to, 3 or 4 more teams and struggles to make teams. It changed it pivoted for everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember Scottie Pippen saying in an interview that was the strongest team he'd ever played for, which was obviously a huge statement, whether it was factual or not. I mean, it was a solid team that year.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was probably the most heartbreaking thing that's ever happened to the Blazers. And there's been some close seconds.
Yeah. Side note, I'm
some
curious.
drafts that have been close seconds.
Is Rasheed Wallace as crazy as he appeared sometimes, or does he just get wrapped up in the game and he's really just a normal, chill guy outside of it, really?
Man, I'll tell you what, Rasheed Wallace might be one of the best teammates I ever had. People only got to see him on the court and they made judgments based on that. But Sheed's the kind of guy, when we were playing together here in Portland, and even after I retired and he was still here, if I called Sheed and said, hey, man, it's my daughter's birthday. Nazir, his son, is invited. You want to bring him over? Not only would he show up with his son, but he would show up and stay the entire time and hang out with the kids. And just he was one of the, like I said, the best human beings you'll ever meet. I feel bad that people only judged him based on what they could see, but they just didn't give him a chance to be himself. Just salt of the earth guy. I can't say enough positive things about Roscoe.
Well, that's why I bring him up, because I figured there had to be another side that we don't see. So
solid player. My favorite phrase from him, and it's still quoted till this day. You guys know what I'm going to say, don't you? The ball don't lie.
Ball don't lie.
Both teams played well. Both teams played well. Yeah.
Both teams played hard. CTC.
Both teams played hard. Yeah.
And ball don't lie. Those are 3 classic, and people in the NBA still use those quotes right now to this day.
Yeah, no, the ball don't lie. I hear that. You hear that on a regular basis till today.
He should start just sidebar. He should start a clothing brand with just his hashtags of his sayings. They'd probably do well.
And you know what? Ball don't lie applies to anything. Somebody crosses you the wrong way, and then hey, guy driving down the street, swings by you, flips you the bird. hits a light pole, ball don't lie.
Yeah, or Steve's golfing outing next week. Ball don't lie, Steve. On close.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's funny. So then you obviously wrap up in the league. That was a big fork. A couple more years, kind of bouncing around. We met putting together an ABA franchise here in Portland. That was a colorful experience to say the least, with some characters, which is why I say that. But we managed to get a few games in before it ended up dissolving, and it just didn't work out, unfortunately. But it was a good experience to begin with, and it just kind of unraveled, unfortunately. But then you got a great opportunity to become the announcer for the Blazers. How did that all come together?
Mike Barrett, who was doing the pre and post game show at the time, he lived kind of in my neighborhood, and he was out with his wife Shelly one day walking the dog, and I was sitting on my front porch with my ex-wife, and he passed by and he said, "Hey, I've been meaning to talk to you. We need a co-host or somebody to come in and do some of the pre and post game shows. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing anything. Makes perfect sense to me. Come in. I'd be more than happy to." And one of the things he said, and this is one of those pride points, one of those things that I learned from my mom, was you always treat everyone as if you're going to need them one day. Even if you don't think you ever are, you always treat everyone as if you're going to need something from them. And that's the way I live my life. And I treated MB the same way. And I was blessed that he remembered that. He came in. I did a season of the pre and post game show. And then that summer, Snapper Jones, God rest him, he got sick. I don't know if you guys remember, he was doing national games and he looked sick on the TV. He had appendicitis, his appendix burst, and he got really sick. And as the summer went on, it became more and more clear that he wasn't going to be able to continue with the Trailblazers as their broadcaster. So I just got on the horn with Dick Vardoniga, who was the head of broadcasting at the time, and I called him every Monday and every Friday. Every Monday to ask him how his weekend was and let him know that I was interested in the job, and every Friday to ask him how his week went and to let him know that I was interested in the job. And on an interesting side note, Steve, I'm sure you'll enjoy this. I have a few real estate agents that I've been trying to get in the door with. I call them every Friday and every Monday with the exact same thing. And it's just to let them know that, hey, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to be here every day when you need me. When you're ready to utilize my skill set, my services, I'll be here waiting on that opportunity.
Love the persistence. Good job. And it worked.
It worked.
Did.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think he gave me the job because he got tired of hearing from me. But that's okay. Whatever got me the gig, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
What was that transition like? Obviously you sat next to a highly touted guy calling the games, but overall, just that experience of putting a microphone in front of you, kind of like we have right now, was there a pretty heavy learning curve, or did you feel like you took to it pretty well?
I would say it probably took 10 or 15 games for me to really understand what my job was. But I give Wheels all the credit in the world. He is the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. And he made the transition relatively seamless. He carried so much of the load that all I had to do was literally get my thoughts together. And it took some time. It's not an easy job. People think you just show up and you talk about basketball. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of ancillary things that go into it. And then you have to be able to get your thoughts out in a concise manner, because I only had 4 or 5 seconds to say what I had to say, and then I had to pass it back to him. So it took some time. It probably took a quarter of a season, 10 to 15, maybe even 20 games for me to get comfortable. But Wheels made it easy. And once I got comfortable, it just began to get better and better from there.
Yeah, and ultimately that was a great turning point for your career here in Portland, because it, like you said, when you're a Blazer, you're everything in this town. And when you're a Blazer announcer, you might as well be a Blazer as well. I mean, you're recognized. I mean, Barrett had more commercials than Blazers did for a while there, right? So
well, that's yes. And there was a reason for that. At one point, when I retired, I was 33. When I got the Blazers job, I was 35. And I was still young. I was still pretty active. I was actually still playing ball at that time. And they would send me out to speak to kids or social engagements because the team at the time was going through a bit of a
Jailblazers.
Hey, I didn't say that. I don't use that term, but
2005. I had season tickets. I know this well. I had season tickets in 2005. I had just started to do pretty well in the mortgage business at that point. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get some season tickets. And I made a rookie mistake of getting the entire season, right?
Ooh, yes.
All home games. and they were so bad that year. Like, I could not give them away. I would call clients up. I would call friends up. Hey, you want to go to a Blazer game? I'm like, oh, no, I'm good, thanks. And so I quickly realized next year I went to half season, and here and now today, I think I have like a quarter season, and even that is, that's about perfect, I think. But that was a rough time for the Blazers in 2005, 2006. They were kind of, hitting that bottom.
That was my rookie year as a broadcaster. It was so bad. We still tell the story. Wills and I laugh now because it's been so long ago. We played the Phoenix Suns early in the season that year. I think it was first or second game of the season. And we had Sebastian Telfair at point guard, Martell Webster, Jared Jack. Yes, a bunch of really young guys who couldn't play at that level yet. And Steve Nash was killing us so bad that by the end of the game, you would have thought Wills and I were Phoenix Suns announcers because we were just all over Steve Nash and everything he did. But yeah, that was a tough season. But that's when I knew that I could do this, because if I could convince fans to continue to listen to that, I can convince them to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they did. And we do. And,
Yes.
Here we are today. Although I told Adam in the last show, I feel like we're at a kind of a precipice with the team this season. And I feel like a meltdown is inevitable to reposition the pieces. But I hope not. But I just have a feeling. I picked the wins within one win the last 3 seasons, like to how many wins we were going to get. Even when the NBA.com guy said we were going to have 29 wins 2 years ago. And that was just ridiculous. I don't know. I feel like this year might be interesting. I hope we do well, but I feel like we didn't gain enough to there to be a whole lot of momentum. So we'll see. But
you know what? I say this to people, and having been around him for 5 or 6 years now, you can't count Damian Lillard out.
No,
you just can't. He's not only a great player, he's a really good human being. And then you put a guy like CJ next to him. It's hard to count those two guys out. I just refuse to. So for me, they're always on the precipice of winning the championship or being out of the playoffs because they've got those two guys on the roster.
Yeah, It comes down to making ball don't lie. Ball don't lie. Make the shots, we win games, we move forward. Miss them, we don't. So we'll see how it goes this year. Hopefully they can shoot a high percentage. They're always entertaining. I love watching them. I'm sure Steve will get a lot of enjoyment out of his season tickets this year. That's for sure. But let's talk next chapter. So now you've segued. You've got a few things you're involved with, but I want to focus in on the chapter with Directors Mortgage. What does that look like now, and what is it that you're doing for them?
Well, it's been a learning curve. We'll say that. I do feel like the things that come natural to me will ultimately lead to success in the industry. One, I'm persistent. Like I said, I'm every Monday, every Friday, the agents that I deal with are going to hear from me, no matter what. 2, I'm willing to do things. I'm willing to go hard and work hard. And I think that, over time, I'm only 6 months into the industry, so I know it's going to take a little longer than that. But I'm working hard. I'm learning a lot. They've got a great group of guys at Directors. It's a great company. They're really philanthropic in terms of being involved in the community. We've got some great partners that we lean on and that lean on us within the industry. So I think for me, it's just about figuring out exactly what the industry is. And I'm going through that process like any young mortgage broker would. But over time, I think that my willingness to be consistent, my willingness to work hard are going to pay dividends.
Yeah, I think Steve could attest to the it's a challenge in the first 6 months, year to really kind of get your feet wet, not only in terms of context, but just grasping all the concepts, right? I mean, because there's a lot to the mortgage side of the business. Real estate side's easy in comparison, really.
Oh my gosh, reality. There's a lot of layers to that onion. I remember, I want to say it was about my 1-year anniversary being in the mortgage business, where it was like this aha moment where I was like, I think I'm getting this business. Prior to that, you would have scenarios and you'd go to people, they'd kind of tell you what to do, and then you'd run back and do it, and then you'd have a new scenario, and that kept happening over and over. But there's just so many different complexities to the business. I mean, there's everything you got to know about credit, everything you got to know about taxes and income. There's everything you got to know about programs and structure, and then you got to put them all together. It's a complex business. One thing you're doing right, Antonio, that I didn't do and made it harder for me was I was learning on my own. I wasn't on a team. So I was practicing in real world time with my own clients without the benefit of watching and observing and having somebody really close that was feeding you those clients or providing scenarios and helping with that guidance. You are on Jeff Waller's team, correct?
Yes.
Such a good guy. I was joking before we were on the air that he's somebody that you'd trust with your 16-year-old daughter to babysit her. I mean, he's just he's a classy guy, such a teddy bear, nice guy, and I mean that in the most positive way. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He's a veteran of the business. I used to personally work with him. I've done a lot of deals with Jeff over the years. I sent him a lot of business, and gosh, you couldn't have picked a better team to work on, and you're an awesome addition to that.
I appreciate that, and I agree completely. Jeff he's the only reason, ultimately, one of the only reasons that I'm at Directors. I mean, there were opportunities to go other places, but Jeff is one of those guys that when you're around him, he makes you feel positive energy. And I'm big on the energy. I can't be around people that are dragging me down. I need people that when I look at him, it's like, you know what, let's go get it. Let's all go get it. Let's all be successful. And the other thing I really like about Jeff is he is a team first guy. You know, his success is wrapped in my success, is wrapped in his success, and he sees it that way, and so do I. So that's been really, really interesting and really great to be around. And Directors has shown me that as well. Everybody there seems to be working in the right direction, the same direction, and success, I think, is just a matter of time for me personally in the industry. Getting to know agents, and it's one of the things that I'm dealing with now as a new agent, and I'm sure every new agent deals with it. This is a big transaction. It's a big transaction for the individual, right? And Steve, as a real estate agent, it's a big transaction for you. You know, if this doesn't go through, if something should fall short, you don't get paid, and that's a big paycheck. So one of the issues, if I want to call it that, has been convincing agents that I can get it done. You know, hey, how many deals have you done? Well, you see, what had happened was they don't want to hear that. They want to know that I'm getting deals done so that they can know I'm going to get their deal done. And that's been the challenge, is convincing the agents that I will get it done. And I think part of that is the Mondays and Fridays, making sure I reach out so they see that consistency.
You know what I noticed too, and because I started back when the market was crazy, same time as Steve, and the relationships, and this is kind of something that everybody that's listening should learn from, but agents in particular at that time did not value the relationship aspect of having a good lender or a good team nearly as much as they should have. They looked at lenders as discardable, we'll call them, right? Replaceable. And the reality is that having a great lender team that is your go-to, it's a huge thing. And as the market shifts, and as everybody isn't as smart as it makes us look when the market is good, people start to recognize that is a tremendous value. And as the pendulum starts to swing back here a little bit, which it is, it'll become easier and easier for you to kind of build and kind of foster those relationships. Because I noticed that heavily within my own business as kind of the market shifted over time.
Yeah, and you picked such a great company. Directors Mortgage is who I use and who I refer exclusively. It's who PPG is partnered with as well. And they're just first of all, their brand recognition is second to none in Portland. I mean, you can't, swing a dead cat by its tail without hitting a billboard or some type of radio commercial or the Blazers partnership. And so there's great brand recognition. But way beyond that, what I appreciate about Directors Mortgage and their leadership and their loan officers there is they're so realtor focused. They always have been and always will be. There's so many in this business over the years, Antonio, who they say they're realtor focused when they need to be, then rates drop 0.5%, and they're like they forget their realtors, and they're all about the refis, and they're burning and turning, and on all these deals we don't need to be nice to realtors, and we don't need to add value to realtors. But Directors doesn't get distracted that way. They've always been realtor focused, purchase focused. How can they add value to their agents, while simultaneously, of course, adding value to the consumer? And that's the interesting thing about what you do, Antonio, that is different than realtors. We are pretty consumer facing, right? Like our client is truly the buyers and sellers, and with few exceptions of who else we focus our attention on. In the mortgage business, you actually have two directions to face. You have the consumers that you have to take care of course, but you've also got the realtors. And truth be told, I think the realtors are the more important ones, with the understanding that if you taking care of the realtor also means taking care of the consumer as well. So Directors is great in that regards, and you couldn't have aligned with a better company as well there. So use those tools. I will say one piece of advice I'd give to you is be persistent, but be persistent in adding value. I've seen a lot of loan officers over the years, and I've seen ones that are successful. You've got to be good at it's. I'll use an analogy of basketball, right? You got to be good at the fundamentals. The fundamentals in basketball is, don't dribble it off your foot out of bounds. Don't pass to the wrong player, right? Fundamentals as a loan officer is close on time, smoothly, no surprises, do what you say, know your programs. Those are the fundamentals. Once you master those fundamentals and then do the fancy stuff, right? In basketball, can you imagine if somebody did a 360 alley-oop slam dunk, but then dribbles off their foot 10 seconds later, right? It would completely negate all the fancy stuff you did. So in the mortgage business, master those fundamentals and then add value and do the creative, innovative stuff. The directors is so good at, by the way, and it is always leading the pack. Their guarantee of earnest money, if should there be a sale fail due to financing, that is such an innovative product, and it's a great one to promote. But yeah, good stuff.
Steve, are you watching youth basketball today? Is that where that analogy came from? Because I have seen kids that can do 360 layups but can't dribble up the court. It happens and nothing is more frustrating to me as a coach than that. I agree, and that's one of the areas that I want to help with the agents is I want to become an ally, a friend, but also a marketer, because I'm blessed. The 12 years I spent in the broadcast booth created a following, especially here in Portland. And one of the things that I've tried to bring to the table when I talk to real estate agents is, you have listings, you have all of these things that you need help with. I want to be that help. I want to be that guy you can call when you have an open house and you want people to see that open house. I'm more than happy to show up with my iPhone and my handheld gimbal, and let's walk around. Let's show people what you're doing and who you are and what type of person you are. We just started. Directors has given me the opportunity to do some stuff in terms of we won't call it broadcast, but we're doing a segment called Tuesdays with Tone, where we kind of go through the industry.
Hey. Get your IGTV channel now, Tuesdays with Tone. I'm telling you, get it. Beat's gonna be huge.
It's funny. I was talking to them the other day. I said, we need a DMTV. We need Directors Mortgage TV. Let's really do something that the industry hasn't seen before, where agents and mortgage brokers and local businesses, we can all come together and really expose the world to who we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have PPG TV, by the way, and it works. It works great. It does work great. Antonio, I have a suggestion for you, because I'm watching you with your newfound role in the business, and here's a suggestion. A great way I think you and your team could add value to agents. Help them do client appreciation parties with you there, and you being the part of the calling for that. Every agent that you guys work with, typically likes to do something once a year where they bring in their best clients and schmoozes them and adds value to them and gives them some kind of love and appreciation. You would be such an asset in that process. Just your celebrity and your being well known. I could see that as being a really cool component there.
Well, I just wrote that down, just so you know. I met with Tucker when I first got started, and he gave me a list of things, and I've tried to implement some of that stuff as well. It's such a tremendous opportunity. One of the things that I enjoy the most about the opportunity is the chance to help people. People look at it as such a transactional thing, but it's not. If done correctly, mortgage broker, real estate agent, it is a relationship-based entity. It should be. If it's not, then you're doing something wrong. When people have a mortgage, I spoke with a young lady yesterday. She's going through a divorce. So I'm not able to do her loan right now. But I told her, we're going to talk every week until your divorce is final. And when it's final, we'll figure out the best course of action, whether it's staying in the home you're in, whether it's moving to a new place. Doesn't matter to me. I'm going to help get you through this process. And more importantly, I've been through a divorce. So on that day when you're not feeling good, when you're feeling a little down about yourself, feel free to give me a call and just let me know what's happening. And maybe something that's happening to you at that moment, I've been through, and I can help you get through it.
Love it. Good stuff. Good stuff.
This is a people business at the end of the day, on all sides, on all aspects of it. And if you're good with the people side of it, the rest of it takes care of itself, is what I found. There's no question about that. So, well, hey, this has been a fantastic show. Tone, want to thank you so much for taking some time to do this. Before we exit, though, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, follow you, and kind of learn more if they want to hook up with you on the mortgage side or just otherwise?
Well, I'm on Facebook. That's kind of my go-to. I'm still learning the Instagram and Twitter, although I've been told if I don't start tweeting and Instagramming, I'm losing my audience. But Twitter is Tone_Harvey. Same thing with Instagram. You can reach me at my office number, 503-547-9625, or email me, antonio.harvey@directorsmortgage.net. Any one of those ways work. I'm looking forward to meeting new people. I'm looking forward to helping new clients, and I'm looking forward to really getting to know real estate agents, especially people who want to grow and learn and work together.
Fantastic. I'll leave it with this as we exit. # both teams played hard.
The ball don't lie.
Ball don't lie.
And cut the check, CTC.
And cut the check. Yeah. Well, all right. We'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks again for listening to our show, and make sure to tune in next week for another great episode of the Portland Real Estate Podcast.